Good morning, everyone. So today we will be discussing two topics, which is non-current asset held for sale and the discontinued operations. So let's start first with the non-current asset held for sale. So our objectives is to understand the recognition of non-current asset held for sale, to know the conditions for the classification of a non-current asset as held for sale, to know the measurement and presentation, and to know the recognition of a non-current asset that ceases to be classified as held for sale. So let's briefly define or recall again what are non-current assets. So when we say non-current assets, they refer to an asset, of course, that does not meet the definition of current asset. So, if you can remember on the past one, diba? So, non-current asset is just a residual definition lang na siya. So, whatever is not part of your current asset, of course, it is considered as your non-current asset. So, ano siya? Oops. So, a non-current asset may be divided into two, which is an individual asset. So, mo ni siya ang kasagaran nga this is the common non-current asset nga magiano, so like land, building, furniture and fixtures and so on. However, non-current assets can also be identified or pwede sila nga i-group as a disposal group. So, when you say a disposal group, it is a group of assets, of course, by the name itself, disposal, to be disposed of either by sale or otherwise together as a group in a single transaction. And liabilities directly associated with those assets that will be transferred in the transaction. So again, disposal group, mga asset nimo nga i-dispose na nimo or imuha ng pambaligya, sale or otherwise. So there are other things, no, na pwede mo other ways on disposing your asset. So what are then non-current assets held for sale? So according to PFRS 5 paragraph 6, it defines non-current asset or it defines a non-current asset or a disposal group as held for sale if the carrying amount, let's highlight it, the carrying amount will be recovered principally through a sale transaction rather than a continuing use. Of course, meaning dili na nimo gamiton ang imuhang asset, no? So this simply means that the entity does not intend to use the asset as part of their operations or their business. So their intention is now to sell it and then recover the carrying amount. So kana siya. That is when you can classify a non-current asset or a disposal group as held for sale. So what are the conditions for the classification as held for sale? So we have two conditions. First, the asset or the disposal group should be available for immediate sale. Meaning, if naiganahan mo palit ana niya karon, is of course, ready na siya nga imong ibaligya. So, again, it is available for immediate sale in the present condition, subject only to the terms that are usual and customary for sale of such asset or disposal group. And second is, of course, the sale must be highly probable. Meaning, kana imuhang asset is dako ang probability niya nga napag mo palit ana niya or mabaligya jud na siya. So that is when you can classify an non-current asset or a disposal group as held for sale. So muna siya ang conditions nga dapat ma-meet. Now, it is said here that the sale must be highly probable. So, di ba, if may tag highly probable, it is kind of vague, no? So, when, or let us define what highly probable means. So, for the sale to be considered as highly probable, the following conditions must be met. So, we have here 5 conditions. First is, of course, the management must be committed to a plan to sell the asset or the disposal group. So again, na ay commitment to sell. Meaning, ang management is ila yung intention nga ibaligyan na, no? Una sila plan nga i-sell yun na siya. Next is that there should be an active program to locate a buyer or to locate a buyer and complete the plan, or there must be a again, dapat active ang company sa pagpangita og buyer, no? And at the same time, no, actively locating a buyer and completing the plan must be initiated. So meaning dapat ilahan na siyang gisugdan, di ba? Dili ra siya plan kutob. So again, the entity must complete the plan that have been initiated, or the plan must have been initiated. So mo na ya ha. Next second nga condition. Third is that the sale is expected to be completed within 1 year. Again, the sale is expected to be completed within 1 year from the date of classification. So again, your starting count, ang starting day nimo sa pag-count is katong sa imong date of classification. So if, for instance, if today nimo siya gi-classify as a non-current asset held for sale, dapat within 1 year starting from today, diyan ano mabaligya ang imuhang asset. Next is the sale price is reasonable in relation to the asset's fair value. So, kani siya. Sale price is reasonable. So, again, ang dimension gani dito is as much as possible is ma-recover nimo maskin ang carrying amount sa imuhang asset, no? So, kana siya. Next is that it is unlikely that the plan to sell will be withdrawn. So, meaning, pareha-pareha rin siya diri sa pinaka-first, no? So, dapat committed yun ang company nga ibaligya nila. So, meaning, was plan nga, di na nila ibaligya. Dili, pwede na nga, karon nga day is mag-decide ang company nga, ibaligya na to. Next month, ayun lang di ay. Diba na? So, dapat, most likely, if mag-decide ang company na ibaligya is, ibaligya na dyan na nila. So, meaning, least likely na kayo nila no nga, bawi o nila ilang decision not to sell the asset. So, muna siya ang mga conditions for the sale to be highly probable. So, technically, if mubalik na rin sa previous slide, no, technically, you have this first condition, then ang kani ikaduha kay na pa siya 5 more. Diba? So, technically, mag 6 kabo conditions ang dapat ma-follow sa imuhang non-current asset for it to be classified as held for sale. Now, next is the measurement of asset held for sale. Under PFRS 5, paragraph 15, it provides that an entity shall measure a non-current asset or disposal group classified as held for sale at the lower of carrying amount or fair values less cost of disposal. So again, ang imuhang pilion is ang lower, whichever is lower. So, PFRS 5, paragraph 25, this is supposed to be 25, further provides that a non-current asset classified as held for sale shall not be depreciated. So, meaning, once na-classify na nimo imuhang non-current asset as held for sale, dili na nimo siya i-appeal sa imuhang depreciation schedule, no? So, of course, imo naman siya ibaligya. So, unsa pa may purpose na imo siyang i-depreciate, di ba? So, kana siya, it shall not be depreciated. Next is, we have the write-down to fair value less cost of disposal. So, if the fair value less cost of disposal is lower then the carrying amount of the asset or disposal group, the write-down is treated as impairment loss. Again, if ang imuhang fair value kay mas gamay kaysa sa imong carrying amount, so of course, diba, sa fair value jud ka magbase. Now, okay, lower of carrying amount or fair value man. So, again, ang imuhang write-down na nila or ang imuhang difference between your fair value and your carrying amount is treated as your impairment loss. Now, if the non-current asset is a disposal group, the impairment loss is a portion across the assets. Meaning, disposal group, dili ra isa ka asset, no? So, imong ipang-allocate ang katong impairment loss. So, for example, mga machinery and equipment and furniture and fixture. So, naay portion ang sa impairment loss na allocated to your machinery, na portion allocated to your equipment, and so on and so forth. So, dapat imong i-allocate gihapon ang katong imuhang impairment loss if ever there is any. Based on carrying amount after writing off any goodwill. So, muna siya. Now, what if there is a subsequent increase in fair value? So, if subsequently there is an increase in the fair value less cost of disposal, PFRS 5 paragraph 21 provides that an entity shall recognize a gain but not in excess of any impairment loss previously recognized. Again, mo recognize siya og gain but not in excess sa imuhang impairment loss previously recognized. So, meaning, for example, let's say lang for katong sa upon classification nimo, date of classification, na kay impairment loss na 100K. Pardon my writing. Okay. Naka-impairment loss nga 100K. So, this is upon date of classification. Now, there was a subsequent increase in your fair value. Now, dapat kana imo subsequent increase if ever your fair value is kanibutangan lang nato kuan hang na kay 100K. Let's say fair value nimo is from date of acquisition ni ha. Let me see. So, let's say your fair value is 1.5. So, imuhang carrying amount man ani imong date of acquisition is of course, let's say 1.4. Mao nang naka-impairment loss nga 100, no? So, upon subsequent increase in your fair value, per se, imuhang fair value is nahimo na siyang 1.7. Diba? Supposedly, unsa man imuhang gain ani nata kay gain nga 300. However, ang imuhang impairment loss nga na-recognize naman is 100. So, ara ra ka stop kutob sa imuhang 100. So, oops, sayop ta anyway kay lower man. Let's make this 6 day. Your fair value is lower than your So, kana siya 1516. So, muna na yung impairment loss nga 100K. So, if ever mo change mangani ang imuhang fair value, mahimo siyang 1.7. Dili ka mo recognize og gain nga 200. Dili ka mo recognize og gain nga 200K. Diba? From 1.5 to 1.7, 200 man. So, ang imuhang rani is katulad kung unsa ang imuhang impairment loss. So, nara niya na mas detailed na example kani sa atong illustration. So, you have here on January 1, an entity acquired an equipment at a cost of 5 million to be used in the ordinary course of business. The equipment has an estimated useful life of 10 years and a residual value of 500,000. Now, on January 1, 2023, the equipment was classified as held for sale. So, take note, pag January 1, 2023, ang iyahang date of classification. On such date, the fair value less cost of disposal was estimated at 19. So on June 30, 2023, the equipment was sold for 15. Now, unsa tong first buhaton? So of course, on January 1, 2023, you need to reclassify the assets. So remove it from the equipment gikan sa PPE and i-classify siya as held for sale. So unsa na nimo siya pag-entry? Let's move to the next slide. So here, you need to, of course, diba, get the carrying amount of your asset. So your carrying amount is nakuha na diri. That's 5 million less your accumulated depreciation. So you have a carrying amount of 3,650. So kana siya, na-classify na siya as na-transfer na siya from your PPE, nahimo na siyang held for sale. Now, adto na ta sa measurement. So kani nga part ha is nag-classification pa lang ka. Gibalhin pa lang nimo from PPE to what do you call that, to your held for sale or HFS na lang akong yun na, HFS. Now, as you may notice, ang amount nga to ang gigamit is 3,650 pa din ha. Pero take note, diba, remember, your non-current assets held for sale should be measured at the lower, whichever is lower of your carrying amount and your fair value less cost of disposal. Now, remember, your fair value was at 19. So, meaning, kaning 3,600 is di pa ni siya mao ang final. So, kanina siya. As you can see here, dapat imuhang equipment held for sale should only be valued to 19 kay tungod mao man ni ang imuhang lower. So, mao ni dapat ang value sa imuhang asset. So, meaning, you need to record an impairment loss of 1,750. Now, on June 30, katong nabaligya na ang imuhang equipment. So, of course, you have here cash of 1,500, loss on sale of equipment na 400, and the equipment held for sale na already, ang ihang measurement is already at 19. So, note that the equipment held for sale is no longer depreciated from January 1 to June 30. So, ano na siya? Again, don't forget to record the impairment loss or katang sa gain. Kay basin ang buhaton ninyo, ari pa lang diri daan is inyuhan na ng idritso og 19. Kani. Let's change the color of the highlight. Basin kani palang daan, inyuha ng himuon nga 19. So, dili ha, kani is imuha palang gibalhin from PPE to your HFS. So, mo na siyang T6 pa na siya din ha. Meron siya imong gi-close per se ang iyang PPE na account. So, mag-another entry ka para sa imuhang measurement. So, mo na siya. Let's try another example. So, you have here on January 1, 2020, an entity acquired an equipment at a cost of 4 million to be used in the ordinary course of business. The equipment has a useful life of 5 years and no residual value. On December 31, 2021, the equipment was held for sale. And then on such date, the fair value less cost of disposal was valued at 3 million. And then it was sold on July 1 for 2.9. So again, unsa ato ang first thing na buhaton? Let's see if I put it here. So again, remember, ato siyang ibalhin from your equipment padung sa imuhang held for sale na account, no? So here, again, don't forget to get the carrying amount. Kanino kandi na may kailangan discuss, may na kay mo na sa depreciation. So, carrying amount of 2,400. So, with that is, ano siya? Pareha ra siya, basically is, parehas la siya ganiha. So, kanina mo nang gi-close. Now, what is different here is that take note, ang imuhang carrying amount is at 2.4, which is already lower than your fair value na 3 million ganiha. So, instead of a impairment loss, ang imuha there is naka-expected gain. Now, take note, the gain is not recognized at this time because any gain should not be anticipated at the point of classification as held for sale. So, unlike impairment loss, nga to ang gi-recognize, ang gain dili na to recognize. Unsay concept ani, balik mo sa principle of conservatism, di ba? Mao na ang reason nganong sa loss kay nag-recognize tapos sa gain kay wala. So, dapat conservative ba dapat ang sa ka business. So, mao na siya nga sa loss ilang gi-recognize. So, ang gain nimo is expected gain pa nimo siya but wala kay entry nga kailangan. Again, wala kay entry nga buhaton basta gain. Sa impairment loss naa, sa gain wala. Now, ari na ta sa sale sa imuhang equipment. So, the equipment was sold for 2.9. So, dili na ka nga mag-recognize na ka og gain if ever naa. So, your equipment is for 2.4. So, of course, naka-gain nga 5 million. So, again, akong ibalik-balik sa imuhang classification date, mag-recognize ka og impairment loss, but dili impairment loss if naa, but dili ka mag-recognize og gain. So, mara ninyong hinumduman. Next is revalued asset classified as held for sale. So, PFRS 5 paragraph 18 provides that when an entity adopts the revaluation model for the measurement of assets, any asset classified as held for sale should be revalued to fair value immediately prior to the classification as held for sale. So, again, it should be revalued immediately. So, unlike ganiha, nga ang ato ang gibuhat is ang carrying amount, diba? Ato ang gibasihan. Since we are dealing with revalued assets here, dapat i-revalue nimo siya una before nimo siya ibalhin ato before nimo siya reclassify as held for sale. So, maura siya. So, the additional revaluation surplus is equal to the fair value at the classification date less than the carrying amount at that date. So, again, kani is na nakay revaluation surplus. So, kabaw naman siguro mo based on your IA1 or IA2, I forgot, diba na naman na ang topic of revaluation surplus. So, kana na siya. There lang is, any cost of disposal at classification date should be recognized as impairment loss for the period and deducted from the asset held for sale. Again, any cost of disposal should be recognized as impairment loss for the period and deducted from the asset held for sale. So, nag-revalue kadaan pero imong base sa imong revalued amount is only the fair value, diba? However, diba kung mag-reclassify ka is nabihag hapon na ang imong cost of disposal. So, ang imong cost of disposal is technically murag hapon kag fair value less cost of disposal pero naiwit lang ang imong cost of disposal. So, ang cost of disposal nimo is adto na siya madidak sa whichever is lower from your carrying amount o imuhang revalued na fair value. So, kana siya. However, at subsequent year and the revalued asset classified as held for sale shall be measured at the lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost of disposal. So again, balik ra gyapon kani, mura gini imong hinumduman per mi nga measurement kani. So kana siya. So we have an example. So may example ta. On January 1, 2020, an entity acquired land at a cost of 2,500,000. So, dali ra kay natong entry ano, debit land, credit, cash to 2.5 million. Now, the land is measured at fair value in accordance with the evaluation model. Now, on December 31, 2020, the fair value of the land was 3 million. So, pila man ang imuhang revaluation surplus. So, of course, that is your 3 million minus your 2.5. So, you have an RS of you have a revaluation surplus na I apologize for my handwriting because I'm just using mouse. So you have a revaluation surplus of 500k, diba? So that is your fair value and your cost of the land. Remember, basi mo, Miss, wala lagi ka nag-depreciate. Land kaya ni ha. So, mana cost ra dito so kay land baya ato ang gi-deal with ani. So, you have a revaluation surplus of 500k. Now, on June 30, 2021, the land was classified as held for sale. So, on such date, the fair value was estimated at 3.5 and the cost of disposal at 100,000. So, unsa ang imuhang buhaton? So, diba you have, again, kailangan nimo i-revalue ang asset first, diba? Before nimo kuhaon sa iyahang carrying amount. So, your asset, diba, iyahang cost now is already, or iyahang fair value, iyahang revalued na fair value is now 3.5 plus iyahang carrying amount by December 31 nga 500, not 500, 3 million. So, naa kay additional RS, naa kay additional revaluation surplus nga 500k. Again, this is an additional na surplus. So, naa kay additional na revaluation surplus na 500k. Then this additional to A. Now, you already have your land valued at 3.5. Ang imuha na is ang pagbalhin niya from your PPE padung sa imuhang HFS, diba? So, mag-entry ka og land held for sale, nya credit debit land held for sale, nya credit land at the amount of 3.5 na. Again, ang imuhang gamito na nga amount inig balhin nimo ato from land nga PPE to land nga held for sale is kaninang imuhang revalued amount, which is 3.5 million. So, aside from that, sa pa imong entry sa June 30, napaka-entry sa imuhang cost of disposal. So, diba, remember, your cost of disposal is recognized as an impairment loss. So, meaning mag-debit kag impairment loss, ang i-credit nimo is, it is a deduction to your HFS. So, debit impairment loss, credit land held for sale, the amount of 100,000. Now, on December 31, the land was sold for 350,000. So, the imuhang carrying amount na lang sa imuhang land is, pila naman lang, you have 3.5 less 100. So, you have land nga 3.4. Then natindar nimo for 3.35. So you have a loss on sale of land in the amount of 50,000. So kana siya. Then question, what do you do with the revaluation? So kaning revaluation is of course imo siyang adto sa imuhang retained earnings. So, again kani silang duha is maadto ra ni sila sa imuhang retained earnings. So, kana siya. Next is we have the abandoned non-current assets. So, according to PFRS 5, paragraph 13, it provides that an entity shall not classify as held for sale a non-current asset or disposal group that is to be abandoned. Again, shall not ang abandon. Diba? Abandon na siya. Lahi man ang naakay intent na ibaligya ug imuha na gyud siyang i-abandon. So, this is because the carrying amount will be recovered principally through continuing use or non-current asset is to be used until the end of its economic life. So, kaya siya. Now, we also have the concept of temporarily abandoned. So, when you say temporarily abandoned by the name itself, diba, temporary na nimo siya. Now, again, kana siya those assets that are temporarily abandoned shall also not be classified as non-current asset. So, so for example, the company has a factory baron, di ba nga wala na nila gamita because maybe hinay na ilahang production or hinay na ilahang demand, di ba? So nasa mga nasa mga factory or let's say nasa mga warehouse nga wala nila magamit. However, di ba ilahag yapon nagbayad gyapon sila og rent ana na warehouse, nagbayad gyapon sila og mga utilities or kanang mga overhead costs for that specific nga warehouse. So even though if wala gyud siya gigamit, di ba ilahag yapon gi-maintain ang specific asset with the intention of using it in the future, di ba? So mo nang temporarily abandoned na siya. So again kani siya is dili na nimo siya i-classify as held for sale. So kanang mga abandoned o temporarily abandoned nga mga assets are not part of your HFS. Next is change in classification. So circumstances could arise leading to the non-current asset no longer being classified as held for sale. So if ganiha is from non-current or from, let's just say, from PPE, from PPE to HFS, diri pod is from HFS, nya, mabalik siya. Mabalik siya non-current asset. So, PFRS 5 provides that the entity shall measure the non-current asset that ceases to be classified as held for sale at the lower of carrying amount before the asset was classified as held for sale. Again, before the asset was classified as held for sale and adjusted for any depreciation. So, meaning as if wala na hitabo ang reclassification. So, meaning, kato imong initial cost o ang usual niya nga depreciation sa asset, pila ang yang carrying amount at that date nga nag-reclassify na sad ka. So, again, taken into consideration ang imong depreciation or amortization or revaluation if there are any. Lower carrying amount or the recoverable amount at the date of the subsequent decision not to sell. So, whichever is lower ana nilang duha. So, let's have an example. So, kani, example. An entity purchased equipment for 5 million on January 1, 2020 with a useful life of 10 years and no residual value. On December 31, 2021, the entity classified the asset as held for sale. So, meaning, classify niya on, take note of the dates, December 31, 2021. So, after 2 years, the fair value of the equipment on December 31, 2021 is at 3.3, and then the cost of disposal is at 100. So, ato hinay-hinayon. Ay, ato na lang home nun di ay. So, kani siya, December 31, 2022, 3.8 na, unya 200K. On same date, the entity believe, meaning on the same date, ang pasabot ani kay sa 2022 ha, the entity believed that the criteria for classification as held for sale can no longer be met. Accordingly, the entity decided not to sell the asset but to continue to use it. So, again, ato take note. Sorry. From January 1, 2020, pag December to December 31, 2021, it is classified as PPE. So, again, kani siya nga period is PPE pa ang imuhang equipment diri. Still part of your PPE. So, of course, recording sa pag-purchase sa PPE, kabawa naman mo as to the recording of the depreciation, it would remain as is. Now, as ito mo focus is kari sa imuhang first nga reclassification from PPE to HFS. So, di ba, whichever is lower. So, pila man imuhang carrying amount of your equipment pag December 31, 2020. So, of course, that is your 5 million less ang imuhang accumulated depreciation nga 1 million. Okay? 2 years man siyang kuan. 2 years man siya. So, meaning ang iyahang carrying amount, sige. So, pag December 31, iyahang carrying amount is at 4 million. Siya. Diba? That is the carrying amount. Now, take note, iyahang fair value is at 3.3. Yan na pa siya cost of disposal. So, unsa man ang imuhang gamiton? Carrying amount or fair value? So, again, whichever is lower. So, meaning, ang imuhang your equipment held for sale should be classified or should be measured. Iyang cost or iyang measurement should be at 3.2. Again, yan ang 3.2 man. That is your 3.3 less your cost of disposal. So, ayaw ninyo kalimutin yung cost of disposal. So, by December 31, 2021, imuhang equipment held for sale should be at 3.2. Now, take note, your fair value is lower than your carrying amount. So, you need to recognize an impairment loss of 800. So, again, naka 800 diri nga. I'm so sorry. It's so hard to write using mouse. So, naka impairment loss nga 800K. So, muna siya. Kani siya nga period from December 31, 2021 to December 31, 2022, your asset was held for sale. Now, pag kani nga time is again, di ba, wala na, naka-decide naman ang entity nga, di na lang ibaligya. So, ibalik nila o classify to PPE. Now, remember, di ba, ang imuhang measurement na is lower of your recoverable amount or lower of your what you call this, the carrying amount as if wala ka nag-classification. So, unsay pasabot from your cost, your cost sa imuhang asset, unya, ang iyahang period or iyahang unaccumulated depreciation from January 1, 2020 to 2022. So, that is 1.5. Diba? So, 1.5. So, meaning na kay carrying amount, ang carrying amount pag 2022 is at 3.5. So, ani. Again, this is your carrying amount as if, di ba, wala ka reclassify. So that's 5 million less your accumulated depreciation for 3 years na 1.5 million. So you have a carrying amount of 3.5 million. Now, your recoverable amount is, of course, your recoverable amount is imong fair value less your cost of disposal. So you have a recoverable amount of 3.6. Okay, recoverable amount 3.6. So again, whichever is lower. So in this case, ang lower man nimo is your lower is at 3.5. Diba? So, muna siya ang imuhang measurement of your equipment. Diba? Mao na siya dapat ang imuhang measurement niya sa iyahang books kung ibalik nimo siya sa PPE. So, dapat measured siya at 3.5. However, take note, ang imuhang equipment held for sale na account, pila man ang iyahang value. Diba? It was only valued at 3.2. So, meaning, sa iyahang reclassification, na ay nakuha nga gain ang imuhang, gain on reclassification of 300,000. So, mo na siya. Na imo na, of course, i-recognize ani mo imuhang gain on reclassification, no? Imo sana siyang i-add diri sa imuhang equipment held for sale. So that is debit equipment held for sale and credit gain on reclassification niya 300,000 kay para inigbalik nimo sa imuhang from PPE to from HFS to PPE is valued na siya at 3.5. So kana na. Then after ana, by the next year is balik na ka sa imuhang by the next year is ang imuhang depreciation is of course usab na pud, no? Mausab ang imuhang depreciation if ang imuhang magamit is ang recoverable amount. What does that mean? Dire is, for depreciation, wala tayo problema. Kaya nga to ang gibasan man is ang imuhang carrying amount, which is 3.5. Now, mag-change ko. 3.5 man ang imuhang gibasan. So, wala kay problema na. Your depreciation for the year 2023 is just 3.5 divided by the remaining number of years. So, same ra, which is 7 ang remaining number of years, which is same ra nga 500k imong annual depreciation. Now, what if ang mas na lower nimo nga value is ang imuhang recoverable amount? Now, if ang na-lower nimo nga value ang imuhang recoverable amount, of course, ang imuhang sundan sa imuhang depreciation is katunang imuhang recoverable amount. Let's say, for example lang ha, instead of 3.6, your recoverable amount is 3.4. So, if you are to ask for the depreciation for the subsequent year, which is 2023, that's already 3.4 divided by the remaining years. So, in this case, 7. Mo na imuhang annual depreciation na. Or sa subsequent na years. So, na imuhang depreciation. So, kana na siya. Next is presentation of assets classified as held for sale. Under PFRS 5, it shall be classified as, which is obvious naman siguro, no? It is classified as current asset. Where is my, oops. It is classified as, erase, oops. Erase, so, it is classified as current asset. So, kana siya. Meaning, from non-current, if imo na siyang i-held for sale, is classified na nimo siya as current asset. So, under PFRS 5, it provides that if the non-current asset is a disposal group classified as held for sale, the assets and liabilities of the group shall be presented separately and cannot be offset as a single amount. In other words, the assets of the disposal group shall be described as non-current assets classified as held for sale, presented separately as a single amount under current assets. Then sa imong liabilities pud nga part is of course lahi po diyang na po siya separate nga line item, no, na labeled as liabilities directly associated with non-current assets classified as held for sale. Under sad siya sa imuhang non-current liabilities. So again, basta imuhang mga held for sale is classified jud siya sa imuhang current asset or current liability siya. Next is change in method of disposal. So under the IASB amended IFRS 5 to clarify the accounting treatment when an entity reclassifies an asset or disposal group from held for sale to held for distribution to owners or vice versa without any time lag. So, muna siya ang mga new treatment. So, the change in classification is considered as a continuation of the original plan of disposal. So, the entity shall continue to apply the held for sale or held for distribution accounting, which muna siya itong i-discuss, no? And then, at the time of reclassification, the entity shall recognize any impairment loss or subsequent increase in fair value less cost of disposal or distribution. And then, the change in classification does not in itself extend the period in which a sale has to be completed. So, that is the change in method of disposal. So, ang pasabot lang ani is distribution lang siya. So, padung siya sa imuhang mga owners, no? So, however, the process or ang katay mong measurement, recognition, and everything else is the same gyapon siya. Except na sa katong sale. Kaya of course, i-distribute naman nimo siya. Di mo na ilisan niya. The company intends to distribute yun ni sa ilahang mga owners. Ana. So, mo na to ang mailis na part as to the sale o ang distribution. So, kana na siya. Pero, all other things mentioned is same ra gihapon. Next topic is discontinued operation. So, discontinued operation is of course ma-relate na mo siya, or it's just a continuation to your non-current assets held for sale, no? So, our objectives is of course to understand the concept of discontinued operation, to know the recognition of discontinued operation, to know its presentation in the income statement, statement of financial position, and statement of cash flows. So, what is a good discontinued operation? Under PFRS 5, a discontinued operation is defined as a component of an entity that either has been disposed of or is classified as held for sale and, so, kanina siya, na siya, and represents a separate major line of business or geographical area of operations, is part of a single coordinated plan to dispose of a separate major line of business or geographical area of operations, or is a subsidy acquired exclusively with a view to resale. So, muna siya. Mo lang ani is, that's why I mentioned nga, sort of ma-relate ni mo siya sa held for sale. Kaya mo man siya. It is either it has been disposed of, or gi-classify siya as held for sale. Plus kani pag yung tulo. Either ana. So, when you say component classified as held for sale, the discontinued operation is accounted for as a disposal group classified as held for sale. So, meaning, itong gidiscuss ganiha, nga mga held for sale, nga measurement and everything else is, maura sa to ang apply. Kaya of course, again, ang discontinued operation is treated siya as a disposal group classified as held for sale. So, the component of an entity must be available for immediate sale in the present condition and the sale must be highly probable. So, unsa lang ang naka-difference ani niya sa discontinued operation nimo? Again, ang iyang sigig balik-balik og mention diri kay ang component of an entity. So, mo na siya. So, meaning, dili ra siya, di siya individual asset. Mo na ang kundi. Discontinued operation is di ra siya individual na asset. Mo na, i-account siya as a disposal group classified as held for sale. So, di ba, ang nausab ra diri no, is if makabantay mo, kani siya nga second paragraph, this is the condition sa imuhang classification as held for sale. So, basically, parera gyud siya. Next is the timing of reporting. So, a component of an entity is classified as discontinued operation at the date when the entity has actually disposed of the operation. So, kani actually disposed. Ito na double highlight na. And when the operation meets the criteria to be classified as held for sale. So, kani siyang duha. Now, PFRS 5, paragraph 12, prohibits the retroactive classification as a discontinued operation. Again, it prohibits the retroactive classification as a discontinued operation when the discontinued criteria are met after the end of reporting period. So, again, dili pwede nga katong mga criteria good na to ganiha para ma-identify siya as held for sale is not satisfy na to after na sa reporting period. So, dili na siya pwede nga imuhang retroactive ang imuhang classification, no? So, kana siya. Stated otherwise, if the discontinued criteria are met after the end of the reporting period, an entity shall not classify the discontinued operation as held for sale in the current financial statement. Again, shall not classify the discontinued operation as HFS in the current financial statements. Next is component of an entity. So, mo nang sigig mention ganiha, di ba? Component of an entity. So again, when you see component of an entity, it may be a subsidiary, a major line of business, or geographical segment whose operations and cash flows can be clearly distinguished operationally and for financial reporting purposes from the rest of the entity. Karon naman siguro no sa pag-identify kung component na siya sa mga product line or let's say kanang sabot ani mga geographical segments, let's say kanang mga branches sa isa ka entity, di ba? Kung mag-close sila og branch inana or mag-close lang specific nga product line kay dili na siya halinon, so kana siya that specific branch or product line is a component of the entity. So, a discontinued operation occurs when the operations and cash flows of that component have been or will be eliminated from the ongoing operations of the entity, and the entity will have no significant continuing involvement in the component after disposal. So, sabtan raman siguro, no? So, again, if wala na siya, meaning if i-classify na siya sa company as discontinued operation, meaning ihang assets, liabilities, ihang income, expenses is mawala na gid siya sa company or wala na sila control over those assets or over those liabilities, diba? So dili na nila ma-include, diba? It will not be, or it is already eliminated sa ilahang sa ilahang i-classify as part sa ilahang asset nga nag-earn gyapon or part of their normal na business operation. So kana siya. Next, let's have the examples of discontinued operations. So, kani mga examples ani, selling by a diversified entity of a major division that represents the entity's only activities in the electronics industry. Selling by a packing entity of controlling interest in a furniture entity. Selling an entity of all its radio stations. A conglomerate is engaged in commodity business, real estate, manufacturing, and construction businesses. So, kana siya, mga examples nimo. So, if ever kani, si conglomerate is magtinda siya, iyang, what do you call that? Iyabang itinda ang iyahang commodity business. So, kana, ma-consider din niya as part of sa iyahang discontinued operation. Or kani siya, iyang radio station, diba, daghan man ang mga satellite branches ang mga radio stations baron, or diba, na. So, kana siya. Next is, which examples which are not discontinued operations. So, phasing out a product line within a product group, shifting of production or marketing activities for a particular business. So, kanina yung product line within a product group is, it would depend po sa business. Like, for example, let's say San Miguel, di ba, mag-phase out lang sila ilang San Mig Light. So, dili na siya matawag nga discontinued operation, no? Kaya nga naman, dapat magyapon sila laing mga beers, di ba, na ang katong mga assets nga involved gyapon nato, ilang mga assets, ilang mga PPE nga gigamit sa pag-produce og lahi nga mga flavors sa beer baron, lahi nga mga variants sa ilahang liquid nga mga products or ilahang mga liquors, diba, is gamit manghapon siya. So, technically is nag-phase out lang sila isa ka specific nga product that is part of a bigger group. Pero, if ilahag yung tangtangon entirely, if tangtangon yun entirely ni San Mig ang iyahang like liquor unit, diba, or kanang ilahang beer business or kanang nga part, di ba, mo focus sila into other nga mga real estate baron or whatever. So, kana siya, discontinued na siya. But if ever kanilang product line, specific product line lang, it is still part of a bigger group. So, kana siya, di na siya matawag na discontinued operation. Shifting of production or marketing activities for a particular line of business from one location to another. Closing of a facility, factory, or branch to achieve productivity improvement or other cost savings. So, these are not considered as discontinued operations. Next is the income statement presentation. So, under PFRS 5, it provides that an entity shall disclose a single amount comprising the total of post-tax profit or loss or the discontinued operation and the post-tax gain or loss recognized on the measurement to fair value less cost of disposal. In short, single amount mag-separate line item ang imuhang discontinued operations held for sale. So, kana, it is, or the income or loss from discontinued operation net of tax shall be presented as a single amount in the income statement below the income for continuing operations. So, is income or loss from discontinued operations. Separate siya. Next, included in the discontinued operation is the amount of revenue, expenses, and income or loss attributable to the discontinued operation during the current period. Apilsad ang impairment loss recognized when the fair value less cost of disposal of discontinued operation is lower than the carrying amount of the net assets. Now, if the fair value is higher, of course, as discussed ganihan, no, sa previous nga sa HFS, is dili mo i-recognize ang imong expected nga gain. Then, any gain or loss from the actual disposal of the assets and settlement of the liabilities of discontinued operation is recognized on the date of sale or date of settlement. Is again included na siya sa imuhang discontinued operation nga amount. The termination cost of employees and other costs which are directly incurred as a result of the discontinuance is also included in your discontinued operation nga amount. Now, you have presentation sa SFP. PFRS 5 provides that the entity shall also present separately in the face of the in the face of the financial position, the assets of the company held for sale separately from all other assets. So, as I mentioned ganiha, imuhang HFS is na siya ihang separate nga line item. Then, assets of the component held for sale are measured at balik-balik na ni lower of fair value and their carrying amount. So, next, liabilities of the component separately from all other liabilities. So, again, sa imuhang SFP it is recognized as part of your current asset. So, katong liabilities related is of course part of your current liabilities. Non-depreciation or non-current asset of the component held for sales shall not be depreciated. So, as previously mentioned, then PFRS 5 also provides that asset shall be presented kani. Balik ni siya ganiha katong sa tong presentation sa imuhang held for sale na mga assets. So, okay. Next is the cash flow. Under PFRS 5, it provides the net cash flows attributable to operating, investing, and financing activities of a discontinued operation shall be separately presented in the statement of cash flows or disclosed in the notes. So, again, separate gyapon siya. So, we have an example. Okay. Zeta company has two segments, A and B. So, on October 1, Zeta signed a contract to sell segment B, but the sale expected to be completed by December 31, 2021. Now, on December 31, 2020, the carrying amount of the assets of segment B was 3 million and the carrying amount of liabilities was 1.8. The fair value less cost of disposal of segment B was 1 million. Now, the sale contract required Zeta Company to terminate certain employees of segment B. The expected termination cost is 150,000 to be paid on June 30, 2021. So you have the following accounting records. You have your sales, cost of goods sold, expenses, and income tax. Now, both segments na siya, A and B. So, how will you present this sa imuhang income statement? Okay, di ba? Of course, income naman nga mga data ang nadiri. So, you have here the sales. Katong sa sales sa imuhang note. Awa ang ilahang gibutang. Ang iyahang gi-include nga sales is sa imuhang segment A. So, ha? That is sales na 5 million less your segment A nga cost of sales nga 2.5 less expenses sa imong segment A nga 1 million, income tax nga 480,000. So, kani siya diri nga mga data is of course your gikani sa segment A. Ang imuhang segment B is kaninang sa imuhang discontinued operation. So, if imo nang kuhaon kani so you have 3 million less 1.4 so net of tax, that's 510. Ato nang sa 510 is di ba wala siya again as mentioned ganiha your what do you call that, your breakdown of your discontinued operation is imuha siyang i-include sa imuhang NFS or notes for financial statement. So, ari siya, imo na siyang i-disclose. Kanina na kay mga disclosures. So, nadadri ang katong sa segment B and so on. Nadadri ang katong impairment loss, di ba? Nga 200K. Nanapod diri ang katong imong cost of disposal. So, mo na 150. Then, your income tax. So, mo nang nakakuha ka og income from discontinued operation of 510,000. So, ano siya? Yun sa pagkuha impairment loss dara sa ubos. Which, na-mention na ni siya sa problem. So, mo na siya. That is your disclosures and your presentation of your discontinued operation. So, again, sumpay ra gid ang tinai sa imong discontinued operations o sa imong non-current assets held for sale, no? Because technically, your discontinued operation is, ang iyang treatment man is pina-held for sale nimo. So, disposal group held for sale. So, mo na siya. Ang mo raging hinumduman is kana measurement, lower of carrying amount, and fair value, less cost of disposal. So, mo na siya imong tinailahan. So, that is the end of the discussion. So, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask either sa group o sa group chat na lang para mas direct. So, that would be all and have a good day.